Today, as we're finishing up the month of wisdom of November and also No Shave November, we're going to finish up in just a few thoughts about how important the consistency of faithful learning and passing on wisdom is. And so we're going to use a little bit of Proverbs, but then I want to capitalize on three distinct topics of passing on wisdom. So we have the constancy and wisdom, remaining faithful and having wisdom, as well as being consistent and passing on that wisdom and passing on that faithful learning. And so the three areas that we're going to look at this morning is a legacy of wisdom and faith, discipleship and wisdom and faith, and finally, the hardest topic, discipline, having discipline in the legacy, in discipleship, and faithful learning. And so for this morning, as we start out in this Proverbs here, I want to look at almost, not even the beginning, deep into the Proverbs, what Solomon is teaching to his son. And we understand that he's kind of talking to his successor that's going to be coming up to rule the kingdom someday at some time. And so he's trying to bestow knowledge on him. He's trying to really give him the wisdom. And what he says in Proverbs 22:17-21 is this: incline your ear and hear the words of the wise. You shall apply your heart to my teaching, for it is pleasant if you guard them within you. Together they will be ready upon your lips, in order for you to for your trust to be in Yahweh. The trust to be in Yahweh is the point of this Proverbs 22:17-21 right here. It's not trust in this because I need you to be a great ruler. It wasn't for the kingdom's sake. It wasn't for corporate sake. That was going to come to a son already. The important part was trust in Yahweh. Because if you remember from the beginning, it was the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. That's where you start. Trust in Yahweh. Know this wisdom. Hear my teaching. That is the foundation for building this kingdom. And then he finishes up, I have made known them to you, I have made them known to you today, even you. Have I not written you 30 sayings with admonitions and knowledge in order to show you what is right? Sayings of truth, in order to return a true saying to him who sent you. I want you to know the truth. I want you to know Yahweh as you're getting ready to lead this kingdom. It was important for Solomon to know that his son would know Yahweh, would know God as part of the legacy of his life and of the kingdom to come. Legacy is important for us today. Passing on the knowledge to the next generation is so important, but it's not for the corporation of the church's sake. It's for the sake of the truth, the knowledge, the church. And I'll tell you, this is where my faith started right here. I'm firmly convinced that I'm a Christian today because my parents knew that it was important to teach me about the Bible. And this is the Bible they used right here. Anybody else use the beginner's Bible? Great picture Bible. I'm glad. This is where my faith started right here because my dad took the time to sit down with me and study with me and show me these stories right here in picture form. It's great because almost everybody on here is smiling. Even Goliath is smiling up there. Everybody's happy in these books. No judgment at all. But he took the time to sit down and say, this is why we're Christians. This is who I am, and I'm going to give you this knowledge, Talon. And it was the expectation of me to receive this wisdom, this knowledge right here, and to live it. And to learn it. And it's expected of me to pass this on also. This is the exact same thing that Solomon was doing to his son in the book of Proverbs. I want you to know the wisdom, and I want you to know God. And one of the things that they would pass on right here, you know this, the Shema. Hear, O Israel. Shema, that word right there actually means hear. It's the beginning of this. This is what they would pass on. Hear, O Israel. The Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. One of the earliest teachings that was recited right here, hear, O Israel, the Lord should be every piece of you, your heart, your soul, your strength, every piece of you should be dedicated to the Lord. It should be every piece of your being. And you know this. This is how they recite it. You shall love Adonai your God with all your soul, with all your might. And these words which I command to you today shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children. This is who God is. This is why we are who we are. It's important to teach the children. And you shall speak of them when you're sitting in your home and when you go on a journey, when you lie down, when you rise up. It's supposed to be every part of you, everything that you do. And you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be jewels between your eyes, and you shall inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. It's everywhere you go. Know and love the Lord. And the full passage right here, Deuteronomy 6, 1 through 9, you know this passage. The commandment and the statutes and the judgments which the Lord your God has commanded to teach you, that you may observe them in the land you're going to cross over to possess. And then here it is, that you may fear the Lord your God, to keep his statutes and his commandments, which I commanded you, you and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life. The legacy was commanded right here. Pass this knowledge on. You want this legacy of your family. Parents, it is your job to teach your children, the grandchildren, the legacy of the Lord. Fear the Lord. Know his statutes, his commandments. This is wisdom right here. And that your days, picking up right back in there, and that your days may be prolonged. Therefore, hear, O Israel, and be careful to observe it, that it may be well with you, and that you may multiply greatly, as the Lord God of your fathers has promised you, a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, with all your strength. And these words I command you today shall be in your heart. You shall, again, teach them diligently to your children. You shall talk about them when you sit down in your house, when you walk by the way, when you rise up, when you lie down. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and there should be a frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. It's every part of you. It's with you. It's everywhere you go. You want to teach this legacy that you are with God everywhere you go, and he should be a part of you everywhere you go. And that leads us right into our second topic, discipleship. Because this Deuteronomy passage, this passage in Deuteronomy was right in this time of Moses and Joshua. This is Moses and Joshua in color. This is who taught this passage. And Moses thought it important, knowing that he wasn't going to be able to cross over into the land, knowing earlier on, all the way back in Leviticus, that he needed a successor, essentially, another leader that was going to come up, somebody to teach, somebody to disciple, somebody to mentor. And so Joshua came into play right here, and he went up to Mount Sinai in Leviticus. He was frequently with Moses, Joshua and Moses, always together, and he would teach them all of these things that he needed to know. And then later on in Exodus 31, we see the passing of leadership from Moses to Joshua, and Joshua was pretty well ready. He was ready for this. Here, let's just read real quick. Exodus, let's move to Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 31. Deuteronomy 31, verse 7 says this right here. This is right after Joshua is the new leader of Israel. Verse 7. Then Moses called Joshua and said to him in sight of all Israel, "Be strong and be of good courage, for you must go with this people to the land which the Lord has sworn to you and to their fathers to give them, and you shall cause them to inherit it." And the Lord said, "He is the one who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you. Do not fear nor be dismayed. The point of this right here, he's telling that Moses is telling this to Joshua in front of the people. God is with you. He's the one that's going before you. He wasn't establishing a corporate leadership struggle or structure. That wasn't his goal. That wasn't his concern, was we need a leader so that we maintain a certain structure among these people. He said, no. First of all, God is the one that's going before you. God is the one that's leading you. You're leading these people by the commandment of God to go to this land that God promised us, and you will inherit it. That's the importance of discipleship. Passing on that God is the one that goes before you. God is the one that leads you. That's why it's important for the sake of the church also. Here in black and white instead, they lost color in here. This is Paul and Timothy, allegedly. Paul had many disciples. He mentored people because he knew the future of the church is in the generation that's going to come below me. The future of the church is in the young people. Teach them what the Lord has said. Teach them that God will go before us. Teach them that God is the one to lead us, and to love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. The foundation of the church needs to be passed on to the next generation, because the contrast between these two right here, Moses and Joshua, and Paul and Timothy, is Joshua didn't really appoint somebody else after him. He didn't necessarily disciple somebody else after him to continue to lead the people. After they kind of accomplished the goal, everybody died out, and there wasn't really a leader like this anymore. And we see this in Judges. Judges chapter 2. Judges chapter 2, verse 7. This is the death of Joshua. So the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great works of the Lord, which he had done for Israel. The people served the Lord in the time when they had Joshua and the elders. Great leadership, men of God right here. Verse 8, now Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died when he was 110 years old. That's old. And they buried him within the border of the inheritance of Timnath and Eretz and the Mount of Ephraim on the north side of Gash. When all that generation had been gathered together, another generation arose after them who did not know the Lord, nor the work which he had done for Israel. Verse 11, then the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served the Baals, and they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the land of Egypt, and they followed other gods from among the gods of the people that were around them. What happened to this right here? Teach them diligently to your children and to your grandchildren. What happened to the legacy of hear the Lord? Hear, O Israel, know the Lord. If there was no one to pass on this message right here, the alternative will take hold. Parents, it's your job to teach your children the knowledge of the Lord. Generations, it's your job to teach the next generation how to lead the church. Not for the sake of the structure, but to know what truth and righteousness is. To know, to fear the Lord. Paul, on the alternative, had many disciples, mentors. And this was a commandment also from Jesus, if you remember from the Great Commission at the end of Matthew. Go into all the nations, teaching, preaching, and baptizing in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and to make disciples of all the nations. Not just fans, not people that will hear it for that generation, but people that want to follow and know the Lord. People that want that relationship. People that are dedicated to hearing the Lord and to knowing the Lord and loving with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. What will become of Pratt if we cut off discipleship at this generation right here? It's our job to teach the next generation to get ready to teach the next generation, the church. It's our job to pass off, hear, O Israel, You shall love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Fear the Lord. This is truth and righteousness and the beginning of wisdom. And now we're in the hardest topic, discipline. And I have two stories for you. And the first one goes back to my dad teaching me who God was and how he was a Christian. And as I tell the story, I want you to know that I absolutely love my father. And I love my dad, and he did right to correct me many times. And discipline is so important because parents, it's your job to discipline your kids. I'm who I am today because my family are firm believers in spanking. And I didn't ask him beforehand if I could tell this story, but it just kind of came up, and it's really vivid in my mind as far as discipline goes. And my dad used to have this box. He was collecting the 50 state quarters, and he had this box that would sit on the nightstand next to the bed. And oddly enough, I just remembered on that box was this passage in Joshua that you hear, this family will serve the Lord. And one day I knew that those quarters were in that box, and I just wanted money. They were shiny, and so I went into that box and I took 2 of those quarters, and I just kind of gave them to myself. And an hour later or so, Dad comes to me, and he brings me into the room, into the master bedroom, and he closes the door. And my siblings knew if one of us were going into the master room with Dad alone and he closes the door, they were about to get punished. And so you had nothing to do with whoever was in that room with Dad in like the last 24 hours. You were not involved with whatever the situation was. And this time it was my turn. And so I went in there and he showed me the box and he said, "Son, did you take my quarters from this box?" I said, "No." I'm like, "Son, you're lying to me. I know you stole my quarters from this box." "No." "Son, I know you stole these quarters. You didn't put the lid on correctly." It was half off. I never fixed it. And then it all came out. Yes, I took the quarters. Here they are. And of course, it was time to be spanked. And I knew I was in serious trouble, real trouble, when Dad would pray before he spanked me. This was really bad this time. And so we prayed, and I remember this so vividly. He would kneel down in front of me, and what he said was, "Lord, I am so sorry that my son is a thief and a liar. Please help him to grow up to be a better man of God, and help me to be a father that will raise him to be a man of God. Amen." And then he spanked me like 6 times. He knew his job was to discipline me and to correct me in the way of righteousness. By the way, also, I never wondered if I was the favorite child. I always knew I was just the difficult child. Hebrews chapter 12, 6 through 11. "For whom the Lord loves, he chastens and scourges every son whom he receives." Discipline is a part of growing. It's a part of knowing who God is and being driven away from the path of destruction, away from the path of theft and deceit and lie. If you endure chastening, and I did, God deals with you as with sons. For what son is there whom a father does not chasten? But if you are without chastening, of which all have become partakers, then you are illegitimate and not sons. Furthermore, we have had human fathers who corrected us, and we paid them respect. And I'll tell you, I respect my dad for discipline, before this passage really was ingrained in me. It was truly a respect for him out of his desire for him to want me to be a good man, and it took a long time for me to recognize that. Shall we not much more readily be in subjection to the Father of spirits and live? For there indeed for a few days chastened us as seemed best to them, but he for our profit, that we may be partakers of his holiness. Now no chastening seems to be joyful for the present, but painful. Nevertheless, afterwards it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Parents, it is your job to discipline your children. brings righteousness, truth, and the knowledge of the Lord, just as God disciplines us to produce the same exact fruit. The other side of discipline comes from ourselves, actually. It's our own job to crave God. It's our own job to seek the Lord. It's our own job to maintain relationship with Him. And it takes a lot of discipline. In June, no, it was July. It was July. I was house sitting for the Hollenbecks. It was a great time. It was like for a whole month. It was like my own resort. And they had workout equipment in the basement, which I never used. They had Disney Plus. They had Amazon Prime. And I watched like the same movies over and over. But one of my favorite things that the Hollenbecks used to have in their home that they sold in the basement was a piano. And I haven't played piano in like years. We did the whole take piano lessons when we're young, and then by the time I was like 8, we gave it up, and I forgot all of it. But when I saw that they had a piano, and the first kids learning adventures for pianos in the basement, I jumped on it, and I like burned through the first book of Piano Adventures #1. And they didn't have #2, so what I did is I got on Amazon, and I got the next 5 piano adventures of it, because I was ready to pick this back up again. And the entire time I was house sitting for the Hollenbecks as they were still living there, I would like make a schedule for myself to go and practice their piano in the basement for myself. And then in August, y'all met Cody, my roommate, we moved in together, and I ordered an electric piano that was really cheap, also off Amazon. And I've practiced maybe once, and I still have all 5 piano adventures. And everything that I learned in the relearned in the Hollenbeck's basement is probably gone by now. So I didn't maintain that discipline to know the piano. If you don't maintain the discipline, then it all goes away. If you don't discipline yourself with the knowledge and the wisdom and the love of the Lord, it'll just kind of float away. Much like sitting in a canoe in a stream and deciding not to paddle upstream to beat the current to get to the destination, you won't stay in one spot, you'll float downstream, away from your destination. And the way that Paul presents this actually is in 1 Corinthians 9:24-27. He says it too about himself. Do you not know that those who run in the stadium all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may win. It takes an effort. It takes an exercise. Self-discipline does. And everyone who competes exercises what? Self-control in all things. And there's kind of some logic in that when you might know this in your own life, when you're kind of disciplined in one area, maybe it's in like physical fitness, you seem to become more disciplined in other areas of your life. You might like better health, better diet, better time management, and other things. But when you really learn one discipline, it carries over into other things right here. And I don't necessarily think that was his point here, but it's the truth that also belongs to our knowledge and love and wisdom and discipline for the Lord. Carrying on, thus, those who do so in order that they may receive a perishable crown, but we an imperishable one. Therefore, I run in the way, not as running aimlessly. I box in the way not as beating the air, but I discipline my body and subjugate it, lest somehow, after preaching to others, I myself should become disqualified. Self-discipline. It's for ourselves also. We have a place we're trying to get to, and it takes an effort. And it also shows who we are. Here in Philippians 2:14, this is an application for it, and a really hard one for myself anyway. Do all things without grumbling and disputing, in order that you may be blameless and innocent children of God without fault in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as stars in the world, holding fast to the Lord. Our self-discipline stands out when we discipline ourselves in the way of God, especially in a generation that does not know God. We've been raised up in that generation, in that wisdom, and we stand out in the world around us, and it should be the same for the generation below us. It's our responsibility to carry on that legacy. It's our responsibility to mentor that, to disciple that. It's our responsibility to exercise discipline, especially to ourselves. I'll finish this up real quick. Whom you shine as stars in the world, holding fast to the word of life. For a source of pride to me in the day of Christ, that I did not run in vain or labor in vain. It's life. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. It's life. One final passage, 1 Peter 3:21. There is also an antitype which now saves us, baptism, not the removal of filth of the flesh, but the answer of a good conscience towards God through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I chose this passage, and it was kind of dangerous this morning during class because I was afraid it was going to get capitalized on a little more than I wanted it to with Mike, but he kind of backed off there without knowing it. Because the real passage in 1 Peter that this belongs to is 3:20 to 21, and this is also kind of cut up, but it says, who were formerly disobedient when the patience of God waited in the days of Noah. So here's a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of background as Peter is using. We know this story that we were brought up with, the story of Noah. This is wisdom that Peter knew that had been carried on from way back in the earth that kept coming and it served its purpose. That in the days of Noah, while an ark was being constructed, and you know the story, in which a few, that is 8 souls, were rescued through water. He's saying, remember that story of Noah when nobody believed Noah that the rain was coming, that there was going to be a big flood. It had never happened before, but God said, Noah, I have a task for you. And whatever anybody else says, I need you to build this ark and bring all these animals into it. You and your family, all 8 of you, are coming into this, and you're going to be saved through this. Peter's saying, let's take that application, that story that's been brought with us, and let's use it as wisdom because it is the parallel for what we have today. And this is where it comes in. And also, corresponding to this, baptism now saves you. Not the removal of dirt from the flesh, but an appeal to God for a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. They use the same technique that we do to teach the same wisdom. Let's look at the past and let's bring it up to the future and see how God has used both of these. If you want wisdom, this is how you do it. And this is probably the best thing that I can bestow upon you right here, is God has taught us. Peter wrote it down and recalled the previous story that God had recorded. Our salvation is baptism, and it saves us, passing through the water. Not the removal of filth and flesh, but the answer of a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. This is the beginning of the legacy. This is wisdom right here. And I'll leave it to you right there. Legacy, discipleship, discipline. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. This is truth and righteousness. And if you had never heard that before, you've heard it now. And it is the beginning of the way to live. And it's something so important to pass on. Thank you.